Hi guys. All right, so before I head to bed for the night, I wanted to share this sort of rabbit hole that I ended up going down today. But before I do that, if you like this channel, please do subscribe. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, so your support would be so appreciated. And I hope everyone has had a great weekend. All right, so let's dig into this. It's February, and as we all know these days, time just seems to fly by. So I'm really trying to be more aware about time and kind of how fast it moves. And with that said, really trying to anticipate what is upcoming in the future and how it would affect, my business or anything that I'm planning for. And even with Turo, I notice it's usually in the first quarter when they tend to announce upcoming changes, or when we start hearing about maybe additional features and just things of that nature, right? And so with that said, I'm really trying to anticipate kind of where I want to take my Turo business for the rest of the year, which really got me to think about the fact that I really know nothing about the car rental industry. I'm not from the car rental industry, and I'm sure most people on the platform aren't either. So how do we get more perspective on the very thing that we're involved in on a day-to-day basis? And getting that perspective, could it potentially help our future? So that kind of led me to doing all this research online. And so I found some really interesting information, which I had spent the day kind of combing through and just kind of gathering stuff for myself to build my own perspective for the year to come. But I wanted to share some good stuff that I came across. So I'll start with a report on trends that really has to do, or that is for the car rental industry on sort of a larger global broader scale. So let's begin with the fact that in 2018, this was a $78.7 billion industry. And what they're projecting, and this was a number that I saw sort of unanimously across the board, was that by 2024, we'll see an increase for the revenue to increase to 122.6 billion. So that's a pretty significant increase in marketplace revenues. Now, of course, some of that probably has to do with inflation and the cost of things going up, but overall, they are seeing patterns of consumers moving more towards car rental versus car ownership for a number of reasons, which we'll get to. And then, of course, the largest part of the industry was economy cars, which of course makes total sense. And then the part that really interested me personally, because these are the types of cars that I deal in, the fastest growing segment of the industry was luxury cars. And that's primarily for usage by business travelers, which is exactly what I see in my area. And I can attest to the fact that over the years, this particular type of renter has increased. I would say I have a business traveler on a weekly basis, and it was just kind of basically going into the fact that when people are traveling for business and they have meetings to attend and things like that, they want to be in sort of a nicer car versus your basic economy car for those reasons. And then another rising segment in the industry was electric vehicles, which is also no surprise there. Electric vehicles are becoming more and more popular. They're becoming more common. There's sort of a normalization starting to happen there. And not only that, but it's also trending because a lot of governments are passing policies where, for emissions and sustainability. So car rental companies are moving towards that, and there's probably some tax incentives there for them as well. And then finally, another major reason why this industry is growing is because of the convenience factor provided through technology, which is exactly primarily what Turo did. They brought the technology probably way better than anyone else has in the industry. So that convenience factor, mobility, technology for people to be able to book a car at the tip of their fingers, to go pick it up seamlessly and just have an easy process is another reason why this industry is really driving forward. And then aside from that, it also noted that the majority of the revenues came from personal usage versus business usage, and that the industry is really ruled by a few major players, which I think we'll begin to see over the next couple of years change as companies like Turo and Uber start making their way into the car rental peer-to-peer sharing networks as strongly. And another interesting thing was it talked about how enterprise is one of the largest. They operate in over 100 countries. But another thing is that enterprise is also really acquiring other companies out there who have fairly large fleets, and it's both in commercial usage or regular rental cars. So they are also really expanding, which I find is something to be aware of. So, who knows? Could enterprise acquire Turo one day? We don't know. Highly unlikely, I'm sure, because that's the very thing that Turo goes against. But then again, things are evolving. And even from just the technology side of it, one of the things that these articles talked about is how these bigger companies that have been around for a long time, like the Avises and the Hertz and the Enterprise, how they're putting a lot of money behind developing their technology for the end user and making it really, really easy for them to book a car and come grab a car. And so that they're more reliant on that experience, and then they sort of shy away from car buying or car ownership. And with that said, I would not be surprised if in the next year or two, we start seeing car rental counters sort of go away, and that these companies just use technology, app-based technology, where people are just booking just like they do with Turo or Turo Go, and they're just going to go pick up cars, which I know some of these car rental companies already have that feature. So very interesting for us people who do Turo to kind of keep note of these trends, because that will ultimately also be competing within our own market. But it gets even a little bit more interesting than that. So I came across another article, and this was on Forbes.com, and it was talking about a college student who went to Princeton University and his experience with a new program that Enterprise launched called Enterprise Car Share. And that really sort of piqued my interest, because they really hit some very specific points on this by launching this program. So basically what Enterprise did was they partnered up with a bunch of major college campuses and government offices and businesses of that nature. And they strategically placed cars sort of within those communities, and very similar to Get Around or even Turo Go. Basically, these people can book a car. It's somewhere within their vicinity. They can go and grab it, and they can rent it for a few hours or a few days. But another thing that they did was they really targeted these college campuses, because they wanted to also capture renters between the ages of 18 and 21. And that's kind of an edge that they have, is because as long as you are a student with the university and you're registered under the university's sort of like car sharing program, and you are under the age of 21, then they will lift those restrictions and allow you to rent a car. So they're kind of opening up like a whole new segment of car renters, obviously people who can drive, but in these heavily populated areas, or if they're foreign students, they can't quite have a car when they're on campus. And what's interesting about this is that one of the students who was giving his sort of story about how he used Enterprise Car Share, he expressed how it was actually cheaper to do the Enterprise Car Share for like a half day than to get an Uber to go run errands to the grocery store or go, go out to eat or whatever it might be. So that was interesting. And then it sort of shifted over to talking about how these other companies are going to make a play in getting into the market. So I'm going to read what one of the executives from, I believe it was from Enterprise, said. So he said, Abraham says these moves are signs of a more sweeping change that's about to overtake a business. It will result in what only a few years ago was unthinkable, a radical new transportation paradigm where the lines between car ownership, rental, and lease are blurred beyond recognition. In that world, cars will drive themselves, and Apple, GM, Hertz, and Google will be in the same business. I like how they don't mention Turo, but we all know Turo will be there most likely, or at least one of these car peer-to-peer sharing companies. Now, what's really interesting about this line and why I sort of underlined it was because he said that the lines are going to be blurred between car ownership, rental, and leases. So it looks like the industry is really pushing for people to step away from car ownership and put that money towards car rental and have all the experiences of owning a car, but without kind of the responsibilities of insurance and gas and car payments and stuff like that. And then it kind of went further into how Enterprise is leveraging their over 5,800 offices that are located within 15 miles of 90% of the US population. And they're leveraging those offices to really provide this enterprise car sharing program. So, they likely pull cars from those locations and make it available to those students and kind of those government workers and things of that nature. So that's definitely a company to watch out for. We already know that Enterprise has been, pretty aggressively going after Turo with all sorts of lawsuits and stuff. So they definitely recognize Turo as a player within their industry and their market, and you can see that they're making moves to sort of counter that. And then the article kind of went on to break down other companies and what other companies are doing. So it moves on to Hertz, and Hertz launched a program called Hertz Plus. And this whole program is so interesting because their tagline is create memorable experiences wherever its drivers go. And what it's trying to do is when people book cars, it's trying to match up those people with experiences in that city, things that are kind of unique to where they're visiting or where they're renting a car. And who does this remind us of? Airbnb is a primary example of this. Airbnb started off with, home sharing, and then they went off and branched off into this whole new vertical of their business called Airbnb Experiences. So wherever you're staying, you can go back onto Airbnb and look at sort of all the different and unique things that you can do there and purchase that experience through their platform as well. So that's exactly what this Hertz Plus is. And it could potentially also be a great segue for Turo as well. So that might be a market that they move into, who knows? But like I always say in all of my videos, everything is trending towards it being an experiential transaction. That's a great way to put it, an experiential transaction. People are willing to pay for an experience, and everything is trending that way. It's these old giants like Hertz, who are so archaic, recognize that element of the way that the world is evolving and how consumers are buying. So, that is something that I like about Turo, is that sort of weaved into the fabric, although we all know it's not perfect, but great hosts out there can provide great experiences. And then it kind of went into Avis. I believe Avis was next, and it talked about how Avis was one, they acquired Zipcar, which I didn't know this. And then there was a testimonial from a guy who talked about how Avis acquired Zipcar, but after they acquired Zipcar, he actually had worse experiences. And one of the things about going through a service like Zipcar, this renter noted, was that the cars tend to be a little bit more banged up than your traditional car rental companies. He said that traditional car rental companies usually have cars that are in better shape. And that is actually, I think, very true, because they rotate through their cars so frequently. So they really, have sort of a fresh set of cars constantly rotating through. Whereas for people like us, Turo hosts, you're likely working with a set of cars for quite a while. I think a lot of people out there think that they're going to be holding on to their cars 5 to 6 years for the term of their loans. And over time, that car is going to take a beating, which is why I talk about you needing an exit strategy so that you can get out of these cars and stay relevant to what's going on in the industry and how we're competing with some of these other companies. But along with that, Avis is also having its own car sales program, right? And we already know that there's enterprise car sales and things like that. So they're sort of just like kind of building this little cycle of car rental, but if you want to buy, we'll sell to you too, and you don't have to worry about buying a car from a car rental company, because now we're going to offer you a warranty, a 12-month 12,000 mile warranty, which is what Avis certified car sales offers. So it's very interesting to see how all of this is really evolving. And I think that, not that I think, I know for sure that in the next year to 2 to maybe 3 years, the rate at which all of this is going to progress, all these companies and how they're evolving their business models, it's going to happen so quickly. So I really hope that Turo moves a little faster. You know, I think they're already way ahead of the curve with the technology that they offer. My background before doing Turo was in technology, and believe me, I've seen so much tech that is actually horrible and super buggy. And while Turo does have some of its flaws, I would say overall they came in with the proper technology, and technology that works really well. I mean, it's really easy to list a car. It's really easy for people to find a car, and it's quite easy to manage, and their app for the most part generally is always pretty responsive. So this is sort of some of the industry information that I found, and overall to me, it sounds very promising. It sounds like a very positive sort of market outlook, at least for the next couple of years. And hopefully with Turo, we feel the effects of that. I really think that we will, especially if Turo continues to market well, continues to refine its processes, and really focuses their position in this industry being very experience driven. People like other people, and I think that having peer-to-peer car sharing the way that Turo does, it is something that could thrive if it's done right and if it's done well. So that's kind of what I came across. I know that was a little bit long-winded, but it was a lot of information, and this is just a small percentage of what I'm sharing than what I read, but I'll post these links in my description down below. But I would love to know, I'm about to lose my voice. I would love to know how you guys think the industry is going to trend, what you anticipate to happen in 2020 with Turo and some of these other car companies. How do you think it'll affect us? Is it going to be an adverse effect, or is it going to be an effect that we can really benefit from and grow our businesses from? Yeah, so I would love to know what you guys think. Please do share your thoughts. I really hope to have my new segment of content coming out soon, the membership-based content, in which I will also do a lot of industry reporting as well, far more refined and far more relative and contextual to what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. But I thought that this was really interesting. All right, guys, before I lose my voice, I should probably go to bed. Thanks for watching. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great rest of your night. Bye, guys.